start to say, that's not the one that Mike went to. He went to Arizona Ecology up by almost to
Yeah, I can do it on the phone.
We'll look it up. We can do that.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting in order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Mr. Smith?
here.
Ms. Salcha? Here. Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Beret?
Here, just to let you know that at 5:30, excuse me, we have a public hearing scheduled, so we're going to break at that time, just so that the board member and the public's aware of that there will be a public meeting at 5:30. And we will now proceed with approval of the minutes under D. I'll entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Beret?
Yes, item D. Summary of current events, Ms. Samaniego, Superintendent.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, members of the staff and community. We want to welcome back everyone to the new year. Hard to believe we're in 2023. This is quarter 3. And we just have our educators and our students have 1 quarter before we start this testing cycle all over again with state testing for ASA and all that, and AZELA and ACT for the high school. So all that will take place in April, and that's going to come right before our eyes very soon. Report cards will be issued next week sometime. And we also have the 100th day of school is approaching on Friday, January the 20th, and this next Monday is Martin Luther King holiday, so it is no school. And I do have a recognition to issue to Ms. Bianca Hernandez. Ms. Bianca Hernandez was nominated for the Presidential Awards of Excellence in Mathematics, Science, and Teaching. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what this recognition is. The Presidential Awards for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching are the highest recognition that a kindergarten through 12th grade science, technology, engineering, and or mathematics teacher may receive for outstanding teaching in the United States. Up to 108 teachers are recognized each year. Presidential awardees receive a certificate signed by the President of the United States, a trip to Washington, D.C., to attend a series of recognition events, and a $10,000 award from the National Science Foundation. Awardees also join an active network of outstanding educators from across the nation. Since 1983, more than 5,200 teachers have been recognized for their contributions in the classroom and to their profession. Awardees serve as models to their colleagues, inspiration to their communities, and leaders in the improvement of STEAM education. Ms. Bianca has accepted the nomination, and she has applied for the recognition. It is a long, extensive, I believe, application process. So if we wish her the best of luck, and hopefully she will be one of our recipients. So Ms. Bianca Hernandez, if you would please come up to receive your certificate. Congratulations. You want to take a picture right there? Congratulations, Ms. Bianca. And when will you find out?
The application is due February 6th.
Okay, or you still have some time.
Did you want to comment about that at all, or give any background, or you just?
I'll just say it was an honor. It's an honor to be nominated and to be among such stellar and esteemed individuals in the state of Arizona, just in itself, that have been nominated for it. So regardless of what the outcome is after February 6th, it's quite an accomplishment in my 24 years of teaching that I have here at Douglas High School. So.
Good, and you're also an ongoing asset to the district,
thank you.
ostensibly there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations again. Okay, and so we also have an update on our Douglas High School building project and the progress that we've made. As noted, we always meet on Thursdays for a weekly team meeting, virtual or in person. And so we have Ellen on the line. We also have Rob, our architect, that is here also. And things are flowing. As you all know, there's been some things that have happened, whether it's staffing, equipment that has held up the project quite a bit. But we're closer to the end. We have we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we have approximate deadlines and time frames from here to probably end of March. that the team is going to address under my superintendent's report. So, Alan, do you want to just talk about the timeline? We're not going to have, no? We're not going to
No,
have?
it's under your report, so we can't, I'm sorry,
Hold on, Alan.
Hold on, sir.
Hold on, Alan.
we can't have any discussion.
We were not going to ask any questions.
I wanted to, first of all, clarify that under reports, you can't have any discussion. If we're gonna have any discussion, full-blown discussion regarding any matter, it's gotta be on the agenda and well advertised and posted. However, if Rob wants to, during call to the public, after some of the things that you say, unless you're finished with
No.
your report, he can get up and comment without any interaction from the board, okay? All right, so you wanna continue with your report?
Yes,
And
so.
I'm sorry about Alan, but I don't know why you had him on the phone, but we can't discuss it.
So we have a timeline of different buildings being completed at different timeframes. And so we have building, and I'm going to find my email from Alan, just to give a little bit more on the DUSD completion. So building R, substantial completion end of February. Building V to follow within 15 days. Building S and T to follow within 30 days of building V. Site work including parking lot in February, planting of the field in March based on water conditions. It is also confirmed that AMP is planning for most part of the off-site by the end, to be part of off the site by the end of March. We understand that continued prevailing conditions, material issues, staffing have contributed to some of the delays, but there is extensive oversight being done by our architect and by Alan and his team in over AMP to make sure that they stay within this new timeline that has been given to us and provided. Cesar, do you have anything else to add?
No, that's basically it. That's all the information we have from the team, and those are the timelines, the most current timelines we have.
And at this time, Eddy Avenue has also been, it was paved. So we are still keeping that avenue closed for the public or Joe Carlson parents to use until we are able to meet with DHS administration and Joe Carlson to determine when Eddy Avenue is going to be open for Joe Carlson parents to pick up and drop off their students and exit via Eddy Avenue. And so we are looking at the end of March. This is what we have at this point.
Okay, so what we'll do is, if you want to respond to anything that she said, you can certainly do it during call to the public, Rob, if you want to, if you feel an urgency to do it. And we apologize to Ellen, but again, there can't be any discussion over a report. All right, governing board members, let me preface any comments and just recognize that I just found out this week, and of course I've been out of town, that we had the passing of a long-time educator in Douglas, Mrs. Louise Kemble, who taught various subjects in the district for a long time, and she also was well-noted and well-known in Cochise County for all of her contributions to education. So if we can just have a moment of silence for her. Okay, governing board members, Mr. Smith, do you have any report?
No.
Ms. Alchell? No. Mr. Lindeman?
Yes, I have a little report here. I've always felt that it's my duty as an elected official to report to the voters on any activities that I have undertaken on behalf of the school district. And so I recently attended the Arizona School Boards Association annual conference, and I believe this is valuable to keep informed about the state and local issues and best practices, and along with networking with other elected and appointed individuals locally, and I believe that ultimately it makes me a better and a more informed board member. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ramos? No reports. Moving along then to the school activity report. Alejandra?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Samaniego, and members of the public. The activity report at DHS and DUSD schools for the month of January is as follows. We've got great news to share about our students at DHS. Tim Brown Wrestling Invitational was a success. Our student athletes represented DHS well with several second, third, fourth, and fifth place finishes. DHS Spirit Line finished in fifth place in the AIA Game Day Championship. On December 19th, we inducted over 60 members to the National Honor Society. Lady Bulldog Basketball wins the Benson Holiday Tournament. What's going on in our district? All schools are back in session, ready to learn after 2 weeks off for the winter holiday. January 16th, no school in observance of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. DHS. January 19th through the 20th, the AIA Spirit Line State Qualifiers and Championships. January 24th is the Wrestling Senior Night. January 26th is Boys Soccer Senior Night versus Walden Grove. And January 30th is the Girls Basketball Senior Night versus Rio Rico. Ray Brain Middle School. Boys soccer and girls basketball at beginning for quarter 3. The first home game will be on January 30th against Lehman Academy. Paul Huber Middle School. Boys soccer and girls basketball are beginning. Winter dance is January 11th at 6 o'clock. Stevenson. Awards Assembly on Friday, January 13th. The 100th day of school is Friday the 20th. Sarah Marley. Second quarter awards assembly on Tuesday, January 24th. Parent informational meeting hosted by 3rd grade on Tuesday, January 24th. We hosted a successful student create a stocking night with a visit from Santa on Wednesday, December 21st. Ferris. Ferris would like to congratulate our Ferris Spelling Bee winners. First place, Juliet Chavez Leatherman, 5th grade. Second place, Melanie Alcaraz, 5th grade. And third place, Janessa Cruz, 4th grade. Ferris Awards Assembly will take place on Wednesday, January 25th. The annual American Heart Association Jump for Heart Kickoff will take place the last week of January. Ferris PTSO meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 24th at 5:30 p.m. and celebrating the 100th day of school with Dress Down Day on January 20th. And Joe Carlson, January activity report is parent-teacher conferences for quarter 2 reports will be held on Wednesday, January 11th from 1 to 4 p.m. The 100th day of school will be on Friday, January 20th. Our awards assembly for quarter 2 will be on Friday, January 20th. And our 3rd grade Move On When Reading parent meeting will be on Monday, January 30th. And Clawson, the 100th day celebration is January 20th. The Parrot Man visit is January 26th. And the quarter 2 award assembly is January 19th. And that's it.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. We have the budget report and travel, Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members. This is the report for the month of December. Everything has been encumbered up to that date. We're still going to wait on the January report. You're going to see all of the encumbrance for the increase on the classified employees for the minimum wage. So you're going to see a difference on that report next month. We're planning on a budget revision probably in February or March, again, to look at where we're at financially at that point. Do you have any specific questions on this report?
Members of the board?
Also, Mr. President, we want to talk about the aggregate expenditure. It's still an issue with the legislature. They haven't, Governor Ducey, before he left, he was trying to get them together to talk about it, but unsuccessfully. Now, the new governor now, apparently when the new report, the first meeting she had, and most of the talk was about education and funding for schools, so that's a good thing. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. She's also wanna push the item of the AEL because we all know how they are holding the schools and the students hostage on that. The last year, if you remember, the amount that the district was at risk of losing was $4.4 million. This year is for $5.2 million. So it's a difference of $800,000 more if this, happens. So we're hoping that that's gonna come soon. That way we can all move forward and look at the projects that we have and not looking at that huge cut to the budget. There's a lot of other things that the governor was talking about in regards to funding, like the capital funding. That's another big item that it seems like it's gonna happen soon. So that'll be another additional funding, extra funding for districts. That's all I have, Mr. President, unless you guys have any questions.
Members of the board?
My question is, should it not go through, what effect is it gonna have on us? How big of an effect?
That's the 5.2 million that Douglas Unified will have to cut.
Wow.
And as you know, 85 to 90% of the whole budget is salaries and benefits.
Just a quick recap. Explain to the board what that is, and just briefly, but it's important. You talk about the aggregate, limited spending, et cetera, and talk about the massive cuts and the effects, but what is it and how did we get there? And just quickly, so that the board can thoroughly understand again, just to kind of revisit it for them.
But this is something that has been happening every single year for probably almost 20 years. And that's something that they're trying to fix on a way that they need to increase that limit so all school districts are not affected by this. What this is basically there was a limit that was set back in the 1980s saying this is how much the school districts overall in the whole state can spend. And obviously we're way over that. I believe it's 1.2 billion for the whole state.
1.39.
1.39 billion, okay, for the whole state. So again, that's, in addition to that, we all know that school districts are funded on a formula that is also from the 1980s and hasn't been updated. So those are the many things that the governor is trying to address and get it fixed. So
How did they go over the limit? What was the one thing that is very significant about them exceeding the limit? Why they have to go to the legislature and have them? I think it's important that we come out here and we talk about
Prop 301.
all of the cuts and how drastic it is. But need to understand what's going on.
And the main thing is Proposition 301, which is the additional money for teachers, which is a good thing, but this was added, if you remember, in the early 2000s, and it's a very significant amount of money, but it wasn't addressed back in the 1980s. So this is something new that the voters approved, but the legislators never updated the law to reflect that increase. So again, if you imagine all of the school districts with that $301 allocation, that's what mostly take us to above the limit.
What's it going to take for us not to lose that money?
A
The
two-thirds
legislature.
vote.
Pardon?
Two-thirds vote.
From the
By
legislature.
the legislature.
Correct.
All right. And do they have it on the agenda? Is it part of anything that they're talking about discussing?
Right, and that's why the governor now, that's what she's trying to do. That's one of her main goals at this point, to reconvene and have a special meeting for that. But again, we'll see if that happens or when it happens.
And they have to have a bill to exceed the limit.
Correct,
right?
correct.
Okay, good.
And approve
Member
it.
of the board, do you have any questions or it's important because we talk about all that money being Mr. Smith.
I have some questions. One, since we know that it's coming, we have amounts, are we looking at ways we can go in and start cutting the budgets that we're currently doing? I know it's going to be extremely difficult or impossible to come up with 5 million.
Correct.
But the more we can cut, obviously it's going to reduce the hurt off of it. And I know I was reviewing some of the audits that they have over the districts. And Douglas, it was showing, there were a number of things that on the audit, it was showing the cost per student is very high. Wondering if there's been any way or anything you've been looking at to start to reduce those costs.
Yes, Mr. Smith, as you notice on that report, we still have almost 10% remaining on our budget, which is only 2.5 million. It's not even half of what we should have to cut. So definitely it's going to affect the way we do business and mainly on staffing. Historically, it's an issue that we have, but it's never been an issue. Like the legislature always comes back
supports
early or
it.
late, and it always passes. But that doesn't mean that 1 year just cannot, And at this point, we haven't looked at specifically the areas that it's going to affect because honestly, it's kind of hard. I mean, we need the teachers, we need the staff, we need all of that. So we're hoping that this gets solved and that it gets done as soon as possible. That way it gives all the districts the opportunity to act and to have some kind of different scenarios that we can look at. And all of the school districts, most of the M&O budget is salaries and benefits. It's a fact. So it's going to affect all of the school districts in the state. Another thing that the governor is looking at is in changing that formula, the funding formula, is just to make it equal to everybody. She just don't like the fact that public school districts are funded one way and the charters are different and the private are different and on the vouchers. Again, without getting political, it's just there's a lot of changes. It's a positive movement, but to answer your question directly, is just we don't have a specific plan as of right now, but we're gonna have to start looking at soon, very soon.
Unfortunately, the biggest fright is
It's
layoffs.
staff.
It's layoffs. I mean, putting it very bluntly, that's what we, the district.
And I would hope, as I said, I was looking at some of those audit numbers and some of the things that they had listed for Douglas when it comes down to cost per student, that kind of stuff. Administrative cost was listed as very high, Another one was the food benefits listed as very high. I understand, obviously, we have to feed the children. We have to do all this other stuff, but hopefully we can find some places to cut in these areas that are already considered very high expenditures before we ever even get to
Staff.
teachers and, salaries, that kind of stuff.
Hopefully,
Definite.
hopefully they'll be, they're in session now, so the governor doesn't need to call a special session. That was always the concern. They're in session now, so somebody needs to introduce a bill to exceed the limit. That's how simple it is, and they need to pass it. And so, thank you for that. Appreciate it. We will now go to Human Resources. Ms. Cox.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members, community. Currently, sorry, I always forget. Sorry. Our current enrollment is 3820. We are in the process of kinder registration now, so we are already registering our kinder students. We also have open enrollment going on, and we are sending out, or we sent out a letter to date to the certified staff. It's a plan of return so that we can start seeing if we're going to have vacancies, how many vacancies we'll have, and so we're giving certified employees about 5 days to return those. And so for our next board meeting, I should have more information on what we're looking at for next year.
Okay, members of the board, any questions, comments on that quickly? All right. Item G, public comments. We have two people that want to address the board. The first one is going to be a longtime school board member, offered many, many years of service to this district, and was also the president of this board more than once, and that's Dr. Michael Gomez.
I'll let her go first because I don't want to be repetitious.
Okay, so we have the other Dr. Christine Gomez, and I think they both want to speak about the same, well, no, go ahead, Dr. Gomez.
Yeah, I don't really know what he wants to speak about, but good evening. As a concerned parent, I attended the last school board meeting, and I asked to be placed on the agenda to discuss the Tim Brown Invitational, and I was not placed on that agenda. I want to share some of the problems, so you can't say you didn't know, for spring sports, as it is too late for the winter sports. We have issues with teams not being registered for tournaments in a timely fashion. therefore not having the chance to participate in their sport or being seen by scouts for scholarships. Girls wrestling was definitely affected, as it was a tournament, as was, I think, a tournament for soccer. You guys can check with your coaching staffs. Coaching staff not receiving grade checks in a timely fashion in order to know who's eligible to participate. It was brought up to us at the first match that our coaches were up till 2 in the morning making changes, as they had just found out who could wrestle. Again, they are new, but I'm sure there's deadlines. I know my daughter was sick during finals, and instead of an incomplete in a class, she received 2 Fs. She has been taught to be assertive and question, but that's not necessarily the personality of every student in this school. Her teacher told her the system didn't take an incomplete, but marked it as missing. I have no reason to think that teacher is being dishonest. If it is happening to Isabella, I'm sure it's happening to others. This isn't or hasn't affected her wrestling, but that might not be the case for all student athletes. I know that everyone is using the excuse that we had a turnover with the athletic director position. We know change is difficult, but what safety nets were placed so that we can help the new athletic director succeed? I'm starting to wonder if this is an issue with administration. I know I would at least have reached out and potentially offered a stipend to the past athletic director to help mentor the new athletic director. Mr. Brain, you mentored Sheila Rogers for at least a year. You of all people know how valuable that is. It's up to the administration to see how we can better use all our resources. We should never burn any bridges. The pattern of this administration does the exact opposite. The reason I was so upset at the last meeting is that the administration told mid-level management to not involve wrestling coaching staff when it came to running the Tim Brown Invitational. Isn't that essentially blackballing? Who has that kind of authority? There are 3 sides to every story. I want everyone to hear what I know and what I experienced as a concerned parent. Now, I would like to know what procedure I need to take to be placed on the next agenda to discuss issues in depth about the Tim Brown Invitational. Please understand, my criticism comes from the fact that I know we can do better. These students deserve better.
First of all, Dr. Gomez, the things you mentioned about the school with the classes and so on, I'm sure that the administration was listening and they will address that. And anything to do with the Tim Brown tournament, that it be placed on the agenda would have to come from the high school as an item that would require board action or board attention. When you were here last time, I specifically remember you said, I want to be on the agenda again, and the time to be on is called to the public. I didn't know that you specifically wanted to have an item. And again, items that are put on the agenda are generally items that require board action and are brought to the board by the administration. There is a procedure now, and you have an in that board members can put items on the agenda regardless of what it is, if they can get 2 board members to submit it to the administration, and then it will be put on, okay? So all the other things, and thank you for all that information, I'm sure they were listening. That'll be addressed by them at whatever the appropriate level is, okay? Dr. Gomez.
You know, after hearing all this, no wonder school boards are being addressed by all the parents because they don't think that you're doing the job. It was just like a gag order. We don't listen to you unless we have people approving that you want to talk. I'm here to talk about the children. It started last year. When my granddaughter was taking the SAT to apply to college, there was a band leader, loud as hell, next door. And they said, we can't concentrate on the SAT tests, they're too loud. They said, can you go and ask him to be quiet? The band leader said, no. What's that for the children? Are you for the children or are you not? Don't test the buck. It starts right here. If you're for the children, if you're after ego, power, or notoriety, resign and get somebody else. You gotta, children come first. you distribute the money, but the children employ everybody else. They pay their wages. So they should come first. If they have something to complain about, they pay it. They pay you. You got to listen to them. Same thing that she said. I was ready to go to a wrestling in Benson. My granddaughter says, they didn't do it right. We're not allowed to participate. And she said, the soccer was not allowed to participate. Who do you have working for you, for God's sakes? Is it for children or for yourselves? Why am I in Rotary? Because I'm still concerned about the children. We're sending kids to the RILA Leadership Award, Leadership Academy, because we will pick leaders and we want to train them. Why do we give scholarships to most improved kids? Because Rotary still considered the children before self.
It's 5:30. It's 5:30. Wait for the public hearing. It's 5:30.
I could go on and on and on, but I'm just perplexed. I can't understand this. Don't pass the buck. It starts right here. Don't say, oh, we had some untrained person. You're the ones that pick them. For God's sakes, do the right thing.
No, that it's 5:30 in the public hearing.
I'm sorry I'm so slow. I was run over by a car.
Don't worry about it. You got everybody's attention. Did you want to address the board, Rob?
Yeah, real briefly, if I may.
Mr. Berry.
I'm sorry.
The hearing,
I have to
the
do
public hearing.
Pardon?
The public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. She kept saying, I'm sorry, we have to have a public hearing. We're going to recess the regular meeting, and we're going to call the public hearing to order. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Salcha?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Berry?
Here, and the governing board shall hold a public meeting pursuant to ARS 15-711 and policy IHAMB at 5:30 p.m. Any other business or discussion which may be occurring at that time shall be interrupted to begin the public hearing promptly at 5:30. Immediately following the public hearing, the board shall resume its place on the agenda. So we're in the public hearing. I think it's always important that we give, we state in the title what the title is and what it's about. But I think it'd be important if Katie, is Katie here? If you would come up, it's your program, right?
No,
Isn't it?
no, this is
Oh,
for the.
I'm
yes,
sorry.
It's for
the
me,
other-
yes.
You do it then.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Katie.
So the public hearing for the purpose of for the board to adopt a curriculum for our family education curriculum. And following the policy, we have had the curriculum for parent viewing online and here at district office. We had a committee that came together, reviewed the curriculum, made a recommendation. We had a first public hearing last month, and this is our second public hearing. And this is an opportunity for the parents or any staff member or community to address the board on the curriculum that's been presented before we take it for adoption. So this is for middle school and high school curriculum on family education.
Okay, so we're open for comments by members of the public or anybody else that wants to, except for the board. This isn't a board discussion. Address the board regarding that. Thank you. Rob, why don't you let me have your card while we're waiting here? Thank you. Okay, so obviously, we're not going to have any input, and let the record show that we ended the public hearing at 5:35, and we're back in the open, regular meeting, and we're back at the call of the public. So, Rob, if you want to kind of just give us, based on what you heard the superintendent report on, and then what you think is important, briefly to just inform the board and the public regarding the progress and the status of that building.
President and board members, my name is Rob Bergheimer. I'm the architect for the Douglas High School. I come down every week, and this week I decided to stay a little later and just kind of update you on where we're at. I'm looking forward to doing a walkthrough with you, maybe between now and next meeting. We'll set up a meeting where we can take you through the project. Obviously, I think everybody knows, we're behind schedule. We're all disappointed that we're not where we want it to be, but in light of things going, we're making a lot of progress. It's a full court press for our office, the contractor, and E3 Allen Levin as well, to keep this project on schedule. As I joked with you before, I had a full head of hair when we started this, and it's been these projects always take a pound of flesh out of you, and this is no exception. We're in extraordinary times. We've got to remember that we've been through an epidemic with COVID happening, and we are still trying to move forward in construction, delays and supply issues. We're working through a lot of those, but I do think that we are on our way down. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I just want you to know that we're on this continuously. We worked over the holidays. We had some challenges with the city and to get this project moving, and it took a team to do this. And it's not one person, it's a whole team of people, and there's a whole host of people that are behind the scenes that are making this project happen. And we all understand that this is an important project for the community and for these kids. And I want you to know that it does have our attention, and we're looking forward to getting this thing wrapped up early spring. So with that, I'm looking forward to seeing you sometime in the next few weeks. We'll do a site tour. You'll be, I think, pleasantly surprised. It's coming along. You'll see a lot happening here in the next 45 days. A lot of things are going to start happening. Will start to take shape. So it's an exciting time. You're starting to see all the buildings, the envelopes being completed on the buildings. So you can start to see the masses. And it's looking quite handsome, I think. So we're excited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You didn't come down here especially for that. You were here on your regular visit anyway, weren't you?
I came down just to see you, Mr. President.
Oh, okay. All right, good. All right, thank you. Moving to item 2, consent agenda items. A1, approval of the vouchers under subsections 1 and 2. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Zalchow. Any discussion regarding any of those vouchers? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes. Item 3, discussion action on approval of certified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we have 3 emergency substitute teachers being hired for the district.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the certified hires.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ramos. Discussion, members of the board? Any discussion by the administration? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes. Item B, discussion action on the approval of classified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we have 3 classified being recommended, one for the after-school enrichment program, IA at Clausen Elementary, instructional IA at Ferris, and an IT help desk technician.
Motion to approve
Move to approve.
by Mr. Lindemann. Second
Second.
by Mr. Ramos or Ms. Salchow?
Ms. Salcha?
Ms. Salchow. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item C, discussion action on the approval of classified resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
We have 4 resignations, food service worker and ESS instructional aide at Joe Carlson, and then 2 other instructional aides resigning, and they are all rehireable. Some of them are for medical reasons, and some of them are other personal reasons, and Mrs. Cox has met with all of the staff.
Motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman.
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item D, discussion action on the approval of classified transfer. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, Alejandra Favela, who's currently the parent liaison at Palm Huber Middle School, is being recommended as a transfer to be the principal secretary to fulfill that vacancy there.
Motion to approve
Move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second
Second.
by Mr. Ramos. Discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item E, discussion action on the approval of addendum. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, Ms. Nubia Elias, currently, she's one of our counselors, and that sponsorship was vacant, so she's going to be taking on that duty.
Currently one of the counselors, you said?
She's, the counselor at one of the counselors at the high school, so she'll be the sponsor of NHS.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Ms. Salchow. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item F, discussion action on the approval of addendums for middle school athletics. Ms. Samaniego.
You have 2 being recommended, one for 2 different seasons, and it's David Campos and Angelica Enriquez. Or 1 season, I'm sorry. David Campos and Angelica.
Motion to approve
I move to approve.
by Mr. Lindeman. Second by Ms. Salchow. Discussion?
Has the season already started?
No.
Okay. When does it start?
Let me see, I think I have, Thursday.
Okay.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item G, discussion action on the approval of volunteers. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, you have Angel Vasquez for baseball and Eric Moreno Robles as a health aide district-wide, comes with a lot of experience. And these are just volunteers for the district.
Have a motion
Move to approve.
Second.
by Mr. Ramos. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item H, discussion action on the approval of donations received for Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
There are several donations, and the first one is a bat valued at $229.68 going to Douglas High School baseball program. Next is another bat going out to Douglas High School baseball program valued at $229.68. Donation of $40 going to the Douglas High School boys basketball program. Donation of Zippy TS wheelchair valued at $300 going out to DUSD. And several donors choose for classroom projects as listed there in your background.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman. Is there a second?
I do.
By Ms. Salchow. Tell us a little bit about that bat that's worth $229.68. I mean, no, we're happy and very appreciative of, but is that typically what you pay for a bat for the baseball team? Is that a typical bat?
It could be. It could be. I don't know about the regulations of the specific equipment, but
Some,
It could be.
Some bats are more expensive.
and yet
Really?
they don't hit home runs. So
Wow.
the bats. I mean,
Of course, those were donations.
Yes.
Yeah. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith? Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item I, discussion action on the approval of out-of-state travel for migrant department staff to attend the Migrant Education Annual Conference. And board members, you had background on that, but Ms. Samaniego, go ahead, but there was
Yes.
extensive background on that.
Yes, so this is out-of-state travel, and any out-of-state travel for staff is something that I will bring to the board. And I do have a correction on this. There's been a change. The recommendation is for Sandra Garcia and Carol Perez to be the only two traveling. And the cost of the trip is being decreased because instead of 3 people, it is now less. So it is, let me get that for you. It's about a little over 4,000. So Mrs. Herrera is going to be staying back. The timing of the conference is right when all grants are due, and state testing is right at the end of it. So those are important times that she needs to be here. So the total cost for the conference is now $4,458 for Sandra and Carol Perez to attend the Migrant Recruiter Conference, the 2023 National Migrant Conference in Albuquerque.
That come out of migrant ed? Mr.
Yes.
Soto?
Correct.
Motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President, I had a couple of questions. You know, usually out-of-state travel, in my estimation, it isn't as valuable as local travel. Now, is this particular thing a requirement?
Yes, so this is one of the National Migrant Conference, and there is, it happens once a year. So Migrant is a federal program, and so that's why they're not just in Arizona. They change at different times.
Yeah, and I realize that it's federal
Yes.
monies, but all of it is tax money. And so I want to make sure that we have our best bang for the buck whenever we have to spend
Absolutely.
taxpayers' money. So
Yes.
that was my concern.
Any
Thank you.
further discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes?
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item J, discussion action on waiving the requirement of a second-class SUB observation for the 2022-23 school year pursuant to ARS 15-537 subsection G. Ms. Samaniego.
Per Arizona State Statute 15-537 and per our evaluation policy. So just a little bit of background now that Mr. Smith is on the board. Every year, our teachers have their evaluation. And so per policy, they can have 1 or 2 evaluations during the year. It's at the discretion of the administrator. And so if a teacher is deemed in the highest 2 rankings, the administration will submit a list of teacher names that they are recommending to forego the second evaluation because of their high ranking. And the board is the only one who can approve that list, not myself. So I am bringing a list of 109 teachers to you that are being recommended to forego their second evaluation. And again, the criteria still remains at the principals and can issue 2 evaluations per teacher at every site if they wish to do so.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
Ms. Elcha?
Mrs. Elcha.
I'm
That was
sorry.
Ms. Elcha. Ms. Elcha was second.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. President, I had a question on this item. What is the criteria for waiving the second observation?
The criteria says that, I'll read it here. The governing board may waive the requirement of a second classroom observation for a continuing teacher whose teaching performance based on the first classroom observation places the teacher in one of the 2 highest performance classifications for the current year unless the teacher requests a second observation or the criteria of the principal is to issue a second evaluation.
And so that is determined by the principal.
Yes, and the evaluation tool that is being used.
And the evaluation tool is, my concern is that are all the employees being treated fairly and equally?
I would hope so, Mr. Lindeman. We all use the same evaluation tool, and as you know, we have 8 different administrators, and the assistant principals are also evaluators, and they've all been trained to evaluate effectively, consistently, and use equal practices in their evaluation tools. And so I'm hoping that every staff member is abiding by the policy. They get the evaluation tool, they review it, they have a pre-conference for the teacher to establish what they're going to teach for their evaluation. They get evaluated. It's an hour announced evaluation, so the teacher is not taken by surprise. And then there is a post-conference in which the administrator reviews the evaluation and discusses any maybe deficiencies or strengths, and has that post-conference. So I do believe so that all of our teachers are getting a fair evaluation and consistent with
And the
practices.
determinant is the principal.
The evaluation tool for what's being instructed and being evaluated at that time by that
But
administration.
The principal
Yes.
is the determining factor of the, who uses the tool. Okay, thank you.
Well, did you have any principals that opted out, that decided that they weren't going to, they weren't going to waive the second?
Yes, we have on your list, actually, you have one school, Rayburn Middle School, that the principal has elected, and not because their teachers are less effective than another school, but that was at the discretion of the principal, and she felt, based on their scores this year and the progress that they need to make, she wanted to evaluate twice in the year.
Any other
Yes.
questions or discussion? Ms. Salcho?
What are there 4 criteria or 4 labels that the teacher, so what are they?
Denise, remind me.
They are
Performing.
developing, highly effective, and
Ineffective.
So ineffective, developing, performing, and highly, or effective and highly effective.
Okay, so, thank you.
Any further discussion?
You're asking for the waiver for 109 teachers. How many teachers in total were evaluated?
225.
210, 215.
Okay.
And if I may, so new teachers, because they are probationary teachers, for the first 3 years, they get 2 evaluations, irregardless of how the first evaluation comes out. By law, they are required to. Okay, so all new teachers, and we have quite a few this year.
Okay.
Any further discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes.
Mr. Benjamin?
Yes,
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item K, discussion action on the approval to continue using Wells Fargo Bank for the deposit of the auxiliary and revolving fund. Mr. Soto?
Yes, Mr. President. Again, this is a yearly approval that we have to go through. We have been using Wells Fargo for many years, and basically we don't have a lot of options in town. So,
Just for general information, if so members of the board are aware, it just says auxiliary and revolving funds. The district doesn't have any other, does the district have any other monies in the bank other than that?
no, they're separate. PTSOs and booster clubs, they can have their own accounts separate on whatever bank they want to utilize. But the district doesn't have, as everybody knows, all of the money that the district has is managed by the county and the state. Just so we don't have. I wish we can have $25 million in the bank, but we don't. So the only monies that we have is the auxiliary and student activities.
And the
revolving
auxiliary
funds.
fund is monies that's gotten word, that's cash, so that's why we need to make where do you get, what funds that auxiliary fund?
Fees that we charge the students, and like for athletic fees or for IDs or for parking fees. There's different clubs that collect the money, so they're the ones that deposit that money on those accounts. Yes, athletics, correct.
And what is the revolving fund?
A revolving fund can be like gift and donations, like what would be a good example of that?
Time's up.
eh,
Revolving fund are monies that are reimbursed to whatever fund the
Yeah,
money's
yeah,
from.
and we only have one with $7,000.
Yeah, I
for
just
that.
want the board to know
Yeah.
what they are, and that's why we have to have that account, and you've been successful with Wells Fargo, so.
Yeah, yeah, we have no problems.
Okay. Roll call. Oh, you need a motion? I'm
Move to
sorry.
approve.
Second? Second. By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Questions? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elchak?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes. Item L, discussion action to approve the hearing officers and procedures pursuant to ARS 15-541 and 15-843. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we need to have a list of staff that is required by the board and approved by the board to be a hearing officer for any suspension cases that come along within DUSD. So myself, Mrs. Cox, Mrs. Walker, and then we have a list of trust hearing officers also that we can always call if none of us are available, or if the case, for example, can be a little bit controversial that we want to remain neutral, and we can select from the trust.
Let's get it on the floor for discussion. Mr. Lynn?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ramos. Any discussion?
What,
Ms. Salcho, yeah, the mic.
oh, sorry.
That's right.
Do I be yelling across the room? What training do you have to go through?
Through
to
the
be a hearing officer?
The trust hearing officer training mandated by them. So we cannot be a hearing officer until we attend the trust hearing officer training.
And is there a certain amount of hours that you have to put into it, or?
It's a one, it used to be like a 2-day training, but since the pandemic, they've changed it. So it's not a number of hours, but it is mandatory that you attend that 1-day training and stay through the entire time.
Thank you.
You mentioned conflict of interest, and you said how just for the sake of discussion, how is that avoided when the recommendation goes to the board and it goes through the administrative office, the superintendent's office? It would go, if you were the hearing officer, then Denise would be the one that would recommend it to the board? And if she were the hearing officer, then you would be the one that would recommend it to the board? Because we're looking at recommendations for suspension and long-term.
Yes, I'm on the list, and I will tell you that in my 5 years of superintendent, I haven't had to do a hearing. And so I'm like the last resort in case nobody's available, because the reason being that an appeal will come to me from the hearing, from the family. And so in that case, if it were me, for example, then we'd have to get one of the hearing officers to get involved in that matter. But if it's Denise or Katie, they make the recommendation after the hearing is conducted. The recommendation goes to me, and if let's say it's an expulsion, then I bring that to the board. And you're the only one that can do that. So that's why I'm there as a last resort.
Do you have anybody outside the district with any experience that you could call on?
Yes.
Well, shouldn't we be, in the event that happens, shouldn't we be approving them tonight?
That you have the trust hearing officers enclosed based on an approved list. So the trust has provided us with an approved list. Anna, did you
okay.
include it in that background? But the
Got it,
list is there.
okay.
They updated one.
Okay, you have the
Okay.
names of
Yes.
who they are?
Mhm.
All right. Okay. We have a motion on the floor? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elchak?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item M, discussion action on the approval of the Douglas Unified School District number 27. This is Katie's gifted scope and sequence.
Yes. So this is, Mrs. Walker has submitted the gifted scope and sequence. As per policy, every 5 years, we have to bring this to the board for board approval. and I will have Mrs. Walker come up. And there was just one typo that she wants to note on her presentation.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. This is Samaniego. So the gifted scope and sequence, AD requires us to upload this every so often into the portal. It's due by March 30th, I believe. So that's why we're bringing it at this time. It outlines the services that the district will provide. One big change that we are asking for approval tonight is Arizona Revised Statute does allow a district board to lower the qualifying score for to participate in a gifted program. We are asking, the typo is, I think it says 86th percentile, we're asking for 91. So this will allow more students to participate in the program. The reason why, my understanding is why the state legislature did that is because the idea is that there would be 8% of the student population participating, and they're not identifying 8% of the student population across Arizona. So they put this into the law that they will allow school districts to lower it. However, with that being said, it does not allow us to claim the funding for those students. They have to qualify at the 97th percentile. Those are the only ones that we can mark and request the weight for the gifted program. But this will allow more students to participate. Our numbers have been low, and so I've asked that you approve, in consultation with our school district psychologist, a number that will allow more kids to be identified. Do you have any questions?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
No, sir.
No. Let's get a motion on the
I
floor.
move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. By Mr. Ramos. Discussion, questions, members of the board, Mr. Lindemann?
Mrs. Walker, when you mentioned that we couldn't get any funding for that gap, are we going to be able to handle that or to fund all
Yeah, I believe
those?
so. Currently, we're paying Admentum a flat rate for 60 students. We have nowhere near that participation rate right now, and that is the minimum right now with Admentum. So again, we're paying that fee, and this would, based on our recent screening and testing, we feel that this will allow us to have more kids participate in that weekly pull-out program.
And Adventum will accept those?
Yes, in the contract, it says up to 60 students, I believe, and then there is in the contract an additional, like if we were to have more students, what their rate would be. But again, we're nowhere near that right now, so.
About how many students do you have participating?
So currently, we only have 14.
Okay. All right, and do you believe by dropping it down to 91?
We believe it'll allow more kids to participate, but it's not gonna give us numbers that we come close to that 60.
There used to be a clause in the policy, the state policy, that talked about, how did I put it? Kind of like when you have underserved population, do we qualify for underserved population, or is that part of the situation?
I think that's part of the situation. Okay. And again, we use the COGAT to screen. We did a digital screening of all kids. After we did that, we only identified one student that scored high enough. So from those scores, we recently went and pulled out kids that we administered the paper and pencil test to. Those have been sent off. So the psychologist, just based on observing the testing, said we should have more kids that qualify because we're hoping we get an individual score. The digital screening puts all three scores together and gives you one overall. So we're hoping we obtain more kids that way.
Thank you.
Members of the board, any further discussion or questions? You said a total of 14, is that what you said?
All we have is 14 exactly.
I do. I have one more question.
Go ahead.
At the high school, where the high school students are, the gifted students are able to take the dual credits, the AP classes and all, are there counselors working with them and pulling them aside to talk to them about that, or do they have to come up with that themselves?
So I want to say it was 2 years ago, we did have a meeting at the high school. We put some procedures in place on how the needs of gifted students should be met, how they are met with individually with their counselor every year. to go through their courses, the available courses to them, the AP courses, and they actually pre-register before the rest of the student population. So
thank
yes, the expectation, the procedure is that they do have a meeting with their counselor once a year.
Good,
Okay, and it actually starts in 8th grade.
good, good.
Okay.
Any further discussion, members of the board, questions, comments? Anything else you'd like to add before you,
No, thank you.
members of the administration?
No, so this, if approved, this will be our gift and scope and sequence for the next 5 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of information there, and it's pretty involved, so it was made available to board members for their review
Review.
prior to the meeting, so no further discussion? Have a motion on the floor? Roll call. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Felcher?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item N, discussion action on the approval of the family life education curriculum, positive potential for 6th to 8th grade students and making proud choices for 9th through 12th grade students. And this is the item for approval that we had the public hearing on.
Yes.
So members of the board, well, let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve.
Is second
second.
by Ms. Salchow. Any discussion regarding that or anything? We didn't hear anything during the public hearing, but members of the board, any discussion, question? Mr. Lee?
I just wanted to ask, has this changed any, or have we had this in the past?
This particular curriculum, positive potential and making proud choices, may not have been the same exact curriculum, but this was what used to be the sex education curriculum. So this is from County Health.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's like updated.
yes, yes, yes.
Well, that's what I want to know, is
yes.
if it came from county
Yes.
health. And I do have a question about, lots of times I won't say lots of times, in the past, they brought in speakers. And are those speakers, I mean, who makes the decision of who speaks to the students? Does it go through county health, or does it go through the school system?
No, it's through County Health. And so once we approve the curriculum, they have their staff that is, trained and works with the program, and then they come to the schools and arrange it through the schools.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Felcher?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, item 4, announcements, and when you get to that, then you may want to take a kind of a poll there to see how many board members will be available for a special meeting. So go ahead and do that
Okay,
now.
so we have again, Martin Luther King. We don't have school or offices will be closed on Monday. The district spelling bee will take place on January the 24th. And we have the next regular board meeting on February the 7th. Should I take the poll now or after the meeting is over?
Well, no, we can ask them, the administration is going to need a special meeting to discuss some personnel issues. And generally, those things are asked for and done as quickly as possible because of the urgency sometimes of the situation. So I kind of informally talked to the board. Mr. Smith, you're not available till, I think you said Friday, not Friday, Thursday.
Thursday at around 4 o'clock.
Ms. Salchow?
I'm here the rest of this week.
Thursday, you'll be, Mr. Lindemann?
Anytime for me.
That's fine with you?
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, how about Mr. Ramos? She said, I believe
I'll
that
do it by phone.
you'll do it by phone. So will that work for you guys,
Okay.
Thursday?
Yes, I'll work with Alma, and she'll inform you.
Okay, and Mr. Smith, what's the earliest that you can be available?
Depends on how fast I can get back from Sierra Vista. But usually, I want to say it's probably going to take me 3 to 3:30. That's why I said 4 o'clock. But
Shall we say 4 o'clock? Will that work?
would be fine.
All right, other members of the board, 4 o'clock work for you? Okay, so then we'll set that up, and you'll get a hold of Jessica.
Yes.
And, all right,
That would be it.
entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindemann,
Second.
by Ms. Salchow. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's down to